When it comes to organizing your projects, everyone seems to have their own theory. Whether you are a desktop person that throws anything and everything into the abyss, or whether you have a specialized tagging system and file structures and naming conventions and everything's in its place, I, for one, have been on both sides of the spectrum. I've definitely fallen victim to the downloads folder filled with files labeled final, final, final. But on the other hand, I've integrated pretty complex file structures that are sometimes super helpful, but other times just way too much to manage. In this video, I wanted to share how I like to organize my projects, my footage, and hard drives, and hopefully it'll help you figure out what works best for you. So to preface this, let's pretend that I'm opening up a brand new hard drive for a new project. Normally what I like to use are these SanDisk SSDs. I have a bunch of them and they're super reliable. They're super fast. I've used everything from these super old Western Digital. I've used Seagate. I've even had those like big lacy orange rugged drives. But these SanDisk SSDs have by far been the most reliable for me. For my archival stuff, I've got two of these giant G drive things. They're hard disk drives, so they're not as fast as the SSDs, but each one is 12 terabytes. So I'm not doing much editing off of these anyway. I normally like to use the SanDisks, but they're great for storing old files, storing old clips, keeping an archive, keeping a backup of projects whenever I need it. I definitely should look into some sort of RAID system. I know they're much safer and more reliable, but for right now, these work fine for me. And it's kind of just what I've been rocking with for the last couple of years. So the first thing I really want to get into is folder structures. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to use one of these SanDisk SSDs. Like I said, I use them for most of my projects these days. They're great to edit off of. For each individual project, I like to have one of these per project. Sometimes I get a little messy and other projects end up on the same drive, but it is what it is. This one's a terabyte. I have another 1 terabyte drive. I have a 2 terabyte and I have a 4 terabyte. So again, 1 terabyte, we're gonna throw it in, and yeah. So here it is, Extreme SSD, top right. I'm gonna open it up and make it full screen. As you can see, there's a couple folders in here, just some random headshots. This was the Onitsuka Tiger spec we did. But the main thing that I want to focus on for right now is this tools folder. When I'm starting a project, pretending this is a brand new drive, I just dumped all my footage, I'm ready to go start my edit. The first thing that I do is copy and paste this folder called tools onto my drive. I've built this tools folder over the last 7-8 years. And it's just like a ton of essentials that I have gathered over the time that I have found I love to have with me while I'm working on an edit. I keep this folder on every one of my drives. I have a master folder on the big G drive, which I update it on there, and then I just copy and paste it over to each one of my drives. But yeah, just to take you through a little bit of it, the business stuff you don't really need to have on every single drive, but you know, invoices, insurance, all that stuff. Color correction, which is super helpful. I have a ton of LUTs, power grades on here. This is my sound effects library. This is kind of like the dumbed down one. I have a much more extensive one on my G drive, but just a bunch of sounds that I've collected over the years. Then again, the same thing with GFX. I have like film burns, different transitions, stuff that I use in edits when I need to. But the main two things that I really want to draw your attention to here are the folder setups and the project setups. So yeah, this first one in folder setup, I have 3 main setups here, but I think the biggest takeaway from this before I get into the nitty gritty is that I have created different setups, different file structures with all these empty folders. So when you start a new project, whichever one you choose, whether it's a super simple one or it's a much more complex one, you can copy and paste this folder structure, throw it into a new folder for your project, and it's all organized for you. So it does take a little bit of time up front to kind of like get it figured out and figure out exactly what you like. But once you have it done, it's kind of like set it and forget it. Every time I come up with a new project. Well, here, I'll get into setup number 2. This is kind of like my structure that I like to use the most. What I'll do is imagine I'm going to start a brand new test project. Let's go back into tools, folder setups. What I do is I just copy and paste everything into here. So Takes 2 seconds. Maybe I already have my footage in here, but what I like to do now is like I'll take the footage and put it in the clips. Maybe I won't need all these folders. Maybe I'll need more folders, but like it's just super easy to have everything right here. You might be thinking this is a little bit too crazy for you, but like I said, it just takes a little bit of time up front. It doesn't have to be this many folders. This is just kind of like what I've come up with. I don't like to have folders inside of folders. I just kind of like to have everything laid out on the root of the drive, and I can just throw stuff in each of these bins. I will show you, for example, a little bit more of a complex one that my editing professor back in college had set up. This one has a lot more to it. I'll maybe use this for bigger client videos. If something needs to be much more organized. This has everything from Avid, After Effects, Resolve, Pro Tools, Premiere, Prelude, all these programs where you can put project files. You have your assets here, video, audio, which now goes into RAW, music, SFX, VO, and then photos, graphics, transcode, so you can put your proxies if you make proxies. Exports, you have radio, rough, fine, lock. Renders, you have your programs again, Avid, Premiere, Resolve, After Effects. You have notes, anything coming, if you're an editor, specifically anything coming from a director or production company. And you have your delivery, you can do color delivery, final exports, and sound delivery. So this one is like super complex to me. I used this for a couple years and I found it to just be a little bit too much for at least my purposes. I'm primarily a director. I edit a lot of my own work, but this is something as a professional editor is like a game changer. This is a very professional structure, and everything is laid out exactly how you might need it. But again, this structure is super easy. Copy and paste this, get rid of this. Say I want to use a little bit more of an organized approach. I just copy and paste this in there. And now it's all set up for me to put, whatever it is. The other thing I really want to touch on is this setup number 3. This is a much different file setup. It has a lot of different stuff in it. And this just goes to show you that like everybody's different. There's no one right way to do it. I was assistant editing on this documentary, and the editor wanted a different file structure. He kind of showed me what he likes to do, and I just kind of kept it for my own purposes. Again, you kind of just figure out what you like and what you don't like. Yeah, if you come across an editor or if you come across a production company that has a specific way of doing things, instead of doing it manually every single time you have a project, having these setups is like super helpful to do beforehand, keeps you organized, and just like streamlines your process. So you can get right into the edit and not have to think about organizing everything as much. So that brings me to our project setups. So on the other side of things, once you have your hard drive files organized and the way you like them, then I go and start my actual project. So as you can see, I have file setups for Avid, Premiere, Resolve. I'm very much, like I said, a Resolve editor. So I guess we can jump in there first, but these are sort of temp project files that you can use to get started with projects. I'll open up version 2 because this is like what I use most often. So you just click on it, open it up. I have to rename it, so let's name it test project. Okay, just like that. And here we go. So, as you can see, my timeline, and I have all my folders pretty much laid out exactly like my hard drive. So what you can do for your own purposes, whether you edit in Premiere, whether you edit in Resolve, Final Cut, whatever it is, open up a brand new project and make these folders however you like them. Create that structure. Again, it takes a little bit of time on the front end, but once you have the project, even if there's updates, you just make a new copy of that blank project that has all these empty folders in it. All you do is you open it up, you save it as, and you name it your project, and you have a completely organized file so that you can just dump all your footage and get right to editing. You don't have to make these folders every time you start up a new project. It's just like a quick little tip, but it saves so much time. You know exactly what you're getting, and it keeps things consistent. So I use this for YouTube. I use this for mini doc stuff. I also have another setup. So this is the more kind of in-depth setup. Yeah, so this one is very similar to that other file structure. Like this file structure matches up with this project structure. So as you can see, we have cuts. I'm just going to go to the master window here. We have cuts, and in cuts, we have current cuts, we have old cuts. In footage, we have raw, transcodes, sync, subclips, acquired, audio, video. You have in your transcodes, nothing in sync, subclips. Yeah, and then in elements, here, take it back. So elements, you have your graphics, music, SFX, stills, temp titles, VFX, and then in music, you have purchased and temp. So again, this one is much more in depth than the other. I would again use this for bigger client videos, things where I know I need to stay organized, where maybe there's multiple editors, and it's more of a collaborative process. The other setup I kind of just have for my own personal use, but I'll show you as well in Premiere how it works too. Like I have these for Premiere, so let's just take a look at this one. Open this up, and yeah, it's pretty much the same exact thing, but in Premiere. So just to show you, I have my cuts, current cuts, old cuts, footage, where you can put your raw audio and video. You know, if you make proxies, put it in transcodes. If you have to sync, you can put it in sync, subclips, and everything else. Yeah, so what I would do is, you know, now you have this temp project, but I can save it as, and let me just call it test project, and put it into the test project in my project files in Premiere and save it. So when I get out of there, I go back to here. I still have my temp project here, but now I have in here, I have my test project. And there you go. You can simplify it to way less of a structure than I have it here. And then you can just focus on the editing. You don't have to focus on the organization because it's already done for you. I can even show you within the Onitsuka Tiger, like this is exactly what it would look like for a finished project. So these are all the versions of the Resolve files. Your clips, I like to organize them into different days. You know, we have, this was our New York day. We have gimbal, handheld, texture, and within the texture, we have like all these other folders. Like this was such an extensive shoot, and it was like helpful when we were doing the dumping to just keep everything separate. I had like so many SD cards being thrown at me at the end of the day while we were in New York. So I was like, let me just make files. Let me just do this up front so that I don't have to worry about it later. And it definitely paid off. Day 3, it was just one location. So you just throw everything in there. Pickups. This was kind of like the clock stuff that I was doing. The audio, assets. So this is like logos and whatnot. Music, throw that in there. Sound effects, you know, I'll still download sound effects and put them in this folder, but you know, I can also go into my sound effects folder that's already on the drive and get ambience, whatever else you need, to kind of use it as temp before it goes off to sound design and sound mixing. Exports, these are just a ton of the exports. Color, this is kind of Karsten and everything he was sending me. Stills, I like to have a folder for GFX. Again, I just copy and paste them from this folder into the specific drive, whichever ones I need. BTS, again, this structure looks pretty familiar. This is like copy and pasted from the other one. Finishing, this was kind of when things got sent off to sound and mix, and then Instagram, you know, I always like to put it on a white background. So yeah, you can add folders, you can get rid of folders. Feel free to use this structure, feel free to create your own. It just takes like a half hour, and then you're set up and you save like an hour every time you start a new project. So yeah, so that's about all I've got for today. I hope you got a little bit of something out of this. It's not the end all be all of file organization. If you got something out of it, great, but I just thought it'd be fun to kind of share what I've learned over the years. I've been super organized, I've been not organized at all, and it's kind of bit me in the butt. So yeah, this is just what I do, and I hope you enjoyed. But yeah, if you made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.